you.
See Jim. Afternoon. The Board of Voters Registration and Elections of Beaufort County Board meeting is now called to order on this day, May 22nd, 2024 at 2:01 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are now at public comments. If there is anyone for public comments, please come forward and state your name. Thank you, and you have 5 minutes. All right, there is no one, so we will move on to our, well, we got introduction and oath of the new board member, but the new board member is not here today. Mr. Cooper is absent, and so we will proceed on to the next item. Minutes from the meeting, March 27th board meeting. Can I get a motion to receive the minutes?
So made.
Okay, Don.
Second.
Second. It's been
Comment?
Oh, go ahead.
May I comment on it? I really have no issues with the notes, although it's a very minor procedural issue. In the section for the Rules Committee, when we took votes on various changes to the rules, we did not take a roll call vote. So I don't believe that the names should be mentioned. In other words, if a motion passed, or let's say it didn't pass, it says motion failed 2-4, rather than listing the names, because we did not take a roll call.
Is that correct, Liz? For rules? Okay. We will note that. Okay, we will note that changes to the roll call for the Rules Committee, that the names were not mentioned. Am I correct, Matt?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we will remove that from the minutes. And is there anything else?
Nothing.
Okay. Okay, so all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye or nay.
Aye.
All right. With the correction of the names being not mentioned in the previous minutes. Okay. Now we are to, what is this? Committee reports?
The board workshop. This is, are we approving the board workshop?
What is that? Do I have the right one? That's not on,
No, it's not on the agenda.
that's not on there.
Okay.
Yeah, we are at committee reports, ad hoc committee.
Okay, ad hoc committee, I have quite a few things to cover here. We had an April 4th meeting of the ad hoc committee where we, and you all have a copy of those meeting notes from April 4th. You received them a couple of weeks ago. I won't go through them in detail. I'll just highlight a couple of things. The objective of that meeting on April 4th was to a follow-up on discussing staff support for poll worker recruitment from the February ad hoc committee meeting. So some of the things we discussed on April 4th were responses to new poll worker applicants. And anecdotally, we heard that many people who had signed up on the website to be poll workers were not receiving any confirmation of their sign-up. And we understood it was a manual process at the time. And I think, Ms. Smalls, you might cover this during your report, talking about using easy votes to make an automatic confirmation to new poll worker applicants. We also talked about having periodic text message blasts by staff to poll workers to keep them engaged and remind them of the need to sign up for classes or the need to respond to requests for availability information. We talked about counts of poll workers by their home precincts, and a couple of reasons for wanting to have lists of poll workers by precinct. One was to understand which regions needed more poll workers. Understanding that poll workers don't always work in their home precincts, it's the best proxy we have for understanding how many poll workers we have for each polling location. A second reason for us to ask to keep track of poll workers by precinct is because I believe it's a goal of the board to staff precincts with people who live in those precincts. And I know that's not something that we can do in the short term, but it should be a long-term goal as we are having turnover in poll workers and adding new poll locations. We should be aware of how many poll workers and what poll workers can be assigned to locations in their own precincts. So that's why we asked for that. Jean did provide that information a few weeks ago. May 3rd, I think she provided that, and that was very helpful. Okay, I won't review anything else in these notes except for the last item. Under action items, the ad hoc committee discussed and proposed to create a poll worker comment document, something that could be used for the board members as they oversee polling locations on election days. They interact with clerks, interact with poll managers, they see how the poll locations are operating, and they see how the voters are going through the facility and whether it's a good process for them or not. So we agreed at the meeting to come up with a proposed comment sheet. You all may have a copy of this. If not, I have copies for everybody. Pass that down to you. So one of the objectives of this comment sheet is to facilitate a discussion between the board members who are interacting with all the poll workers on election day and the staff, who we all know are now responsible for assigning and training the poll workers. We all have to work in a collaborative effort with the poll workers. So I'd like to ask if anybody has any comments or suggestions related to this poll worker comment card.
Mr. Backer, I'm going to start to my left. Do you have anything?
I responded to Matt when he first circulated this, and I think it's something that we can certainly try during the upcoming June primaries. I think it's a potential good way of collecting information, and as we go through future elections, some of us are not as familiar with some of the poll workers as others who have worked a number of elections, but I think this will get us a good start at collecting some information on how poll workers are actually performing their duties on election day.
Liz?
I think it could be helpful to determine like people who have, clerk potential as well as people who, as he said, retire. It's not cumbersome or burdensome, so I think it might be something that we should look at doing.
All right, Don?
When I first received it, I thought it was a good tool. It's one thing to have conversation with poll workers while they're in a training class, in a training environment. But when they're out there the day of an election, it's a whole different experience. And I think this is a good tool to help us identify some of what Liz just said. Those poll managers that we think have potential as a poll clerk. It's kind of you're observing them under fire, so to speak, and see how they handle the situations that come up and any surprises that they might be presented with. It gives us a chance to observe them on a trial by fire basis, and that, say, Jean may not be aware of. So I think it's a good tool for developmental purposes, and we can identify potential.
Okay. Beverly?
I think it has some potential as an assessment observation tool. I probably would want to see some comments such as those people who do not show up on time, people who may leave early, people who may have literature regarding the election that is visible to people that are coming in. And I think maybe a trial run using this, then maybe we could come up with some comments that may be more appropriately aligned with their effectiveness as a poll worker. This is a good beginning, however.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Ford?
Mr. Ford?
Yes, I'll echo my colleagues' comments. My main emphasis, however, is once we collect all of this raw data, how are we going to analyze it, and who is going to be analyzing it, and what is going to be the throughput? Is the board analyzing it, or is the staff analyzing it? And once we've done the proper analysis, then how are we going to implement any changes? So it's an extremely helpful tool, one that I've actually been using at all of my polling locations already, because I get comments from each of my poll workers when I go out to visit them. But then I'm responsible for taking action on those comments. So if we collate all of this data, who is going to analyze it, and what's going to be the throughput after it's analyzed? That would be my only comment.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wentworth?
I think it's a great idea. It's something we use in business. Is we say the best time to get feedback is right in the middle of the heat. And actually, technically, we should probably meet at midnight on election day or sometime when everything's fresh on our mind to capture this information and move it forward. The mistake most business people make, and I assume we could apply this to our committee, is they don't make notes in the heat of a battle, and then a month later they forget them and don't make changes. This allows us to gather information while it's fresh on our mind. And thank you, Mr. Sweeney, for suggesting this.
Okay, I'm last. I would use this. I do notes now, but I didn't have it outlined like this when I go out to visit all of my precincts. And I doodle it on a notepad, so that way I will know who's ready to move up to be a clerk as I talk with the lead clerk there and also the poll workers. And I make notes. I also check on their behavior to make sure that they are paying attention, because now more than ever, we have to be very alert when the voters walk into the precinct to vote. So are we going to be doing this as board members, or we're going to pass out all these sheets of paper to all the poll workers? For me, I would rather do my assessment myself
I think that's
as
the
I go
intent.
into to visit, because I'm going to not take away or give anything at all. I mean, if you're doing the job, I'm going to commend you to the highest, and I do let them know. If I see where there needs to be some changes done, I will make note of that myself.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion with two parts. The first part of the motion is a motion to adopt the use of this comment sheet for the June 11th election on a trial basis for completion by the board members.
Okay.
And the second part of the motion is that staff proposed to the board, to Mr. Ford's point, how do we facilitate the use of this information after the election? Is it phone calls between staff and each board member? Is it a workshop? What would staff propose that we do to facilitate a discussion of this after the election?
That, I think that would be more of a Marie question when you're talking about staff, because here again, they're going to have to look at their schedule and their workload.
So my motion is for Marie
Okay.
to propose a method to facilitate discussion of these comment sheets.
Okay.
May I just add something to all of that?
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, and I'm not trying to shy away from any work assignment, but this is a board decision to implement this form, and the information that's gathered once it's compiled, if it's a training issue or a facility issue, I think then the board need to compile that information and submit it to staff. And so if it's going to be evaluated by the board, if the precincts and the poll workers are being evaluated by the board, I think most of you are doing that already, but it's coming to me on an individual basis instead of as a board itself. And typically when we have our board hot, I guess after election hot washes, we get a lot of the same, what you're talking about now. But if you're looking at doing it in a formalized method, then I would recommend that the board collect the data, chairman, collect the data, and if it's the ad hoc committee or whatever committee you just assign it to, then compile that information and submit it to the board, and we will do our best to implement whatever changes we need based on what's being observed on election day.
Yeah, well, right now, we're sort of discussing something that we haven't second or implemented, so
Right.
yeah, unless we get a second, it dies for lack
You
of
never
support.
have a second. Because you made the motion,
Yes.
I made the motion.
okay, nobody second. You second by Jim?
Are you seconding both parts, Jim?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Would y'all repeat the motion so we'll know exactly what it is?
Yes, the motion has two parts. The first part is that we adopt this form template for the June 11th election on a trial basis
Trial basis.
for forms to be completed by board members. In other words, you're not giving this to the clerk and asking them to do it. It's by the board members. The second part is that staff, or you, Ms. Smalls, propose a method to facilitate discussion of this information between the board member and the staff. And you don't have to propose that now.
I don't know whether this comment is appropriate at this time, but I kind of see assessment as an opportunity for me as a board member to develop a relationship, a skill-building type of relationship with my poll workers. If I see that you're doing something that's not quite right, call that person aside, maybe not on the day of the election, but maybe in a future, conversation or phone call or out to lunch, and use that opportunity to say, you may want to try doing it this way. But I don't think that, just opinion, everything should be relegated to staff. This is something, skill building, relationship building, something that will help us to grow as managers, monitors, and supervisors of the election.
Depending on the circumstances, whatever you might be seeing on the day of election while you're in a polling location, it might need to be corrected then and there.
Right, it may need to be.
Depending on the severity of it, you don't want it to perpetuate itself and to be dealt with later on.
Right,
So I would agree with you.
right.
to
I didn't
that
mean to
extent.
suggest
Yeah.
to delay it. If there's something that needs immediate attention, call that person aside.
To me, this is a feedback tool. This is a feedback mechanism that if we as board members collated and come up with some brief type of summary, we can present it to Marie, and then she and her staff can determine, is this a training need? Do we need to revise and address our training methods, or is it a developmental or something like that? I don't see this as, we certainly don't want to usurp the relationship between Marie and her staff and the poll workers. We as board members
No.
have to be
Right.
removed somewhat from that.
I was not suggesting that we do.
Okay, all right. Is that okay now, Marie? Everybody? We're fine? Okay.
I got one question. Last night I was having drinks with Susie Spring down to Triangle, and she's asked to be transferred to my precinct 2A.
All right. Okay, thank you. We'll put that on the comment section.
Doesn't mean it's gonna happen, right?
Excuse me, I
That's
do
right.
have one question that's not related. Is the tape recorder on? Where is it?
That's
The tape recorder for
public
minutes?
record that you were in the triangle.
Yeah.
No, I'm just taking notes, but do we have the tape recorder for the secretary here and on? I haven't seen it. Because, I mean, Jean has been bringing it to the meeting, she's not here, and I didn't see anyone put it out.
It is being recorded though,
Okay, I
so we
just
can
want
get
to
it
make
from
sure
that, yeah,
that
it
we
is being recorded.
have something that's better than the notes I'm taking.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hold on.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the discussion of the poll worker summary,
Okay.
or the comment card. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the updated forecasts, and Chris provided each of you with this two-page document, which is an update of documents we've reviewed at previous board meetings. This one's been updated with information about registered voter counts as of May 13th. So just updated numbers to forecast and again, this sheet really is focused on the November 5th general election. So it's using May 13 voter registration data to extrapolate an estimated number of voters and therefore turnout. It also incorporates the poll worker counts that Jean provided us on May 3rd. So I'll just talk about a couple of things here. Oh, and it's also updated with the new or the known polling locations for November. So based on that information, we're still expecting 75% overall turnout for November, 60% of that on election day for the purposes of calculating machine allocations. And based on that, we believe we'll need 208 electronic poll books, 85 DS200 scanners for a total of 82 locations. That's plus or minus a few locations, but it's about right. The forecast of poll workers using the overall turnout formula, which is 3 poll workers for every 500 voters who turn out overall, we'll need 771 poll workers. And just for reference, 2022 actual poll worker count was 443, so it's a very big increase from that. If we look at the attention table there, it just reiterates what we've discussed earlier about overall turnout, election day turnout, number of precincts, everything is about 50% bigger than it was in 2022. And it gives the count of election day BMDs at 580, EPBs 208, scanners at 85. On the second page of that, it has a poll worker analysis, and it's got an added column to reflect the information about poll worker counts by precinct. So for each board member's region, it calculates using a 40% availability of existing poll workers, the total available poll workers versus poll workers needed. So you can see Mr. Backer, for example. He will need 323 poll workers, active poll workers, assuming a 40% availability. That gives him 158 people working, but he will need an additional 66 poll workers if those additional poll workers are at 100% availability. So the detail for each board member is included on the second handout that Chris created. That's this one here. It lists the polling location by board member. The first page lists the polling locations and the precincts in each of those polling locations. It lists the total forecasted registered voters, total voter turnout, and the election day turnout, which is critical for poll worker calculation and equipment allocations. The second page of this then has location by location counts of poll workers, the current active poll workers, and then the poll workers needed based on our overall turnout calculation. So you can see at each polling location about how many poll workers you need. Now, keep in mind that not all poll workers work in their home precincts, but this gives you a general idea of, for each location, how many additional poll workers you'll need. And this information, I think, is important as you recruit additional poll workers to target the areas that need the most poll workers, keeping in mind that in the future, the more people who work in their home precincts, the better off we'll be. And then the second page of your region-specific list is the key. It's key for page 1 and key for page 2. And I have some suggested action items for everybody for the June 11th election. So the first one is to confirm your November 5th polling locations. Number 2 is to identify the precincts where targeted recruiting is needed. And I think that's a good thing to familiarize yourself with this before the June 11th election. So when you're there, you can talk to the poll workers in those locations and say, hey, we really need 3 more people. Can you talk to your friends and see if we can get some more people from this area working here? The third is recruit the poll workers you need, targeted if necessary, keeping in mind that we'll continue county-wide efforts to do recruiting. And fourth, confirm that the polling locations you're assigned to can accommodate the equipment and the poll worker counts that are estimated here. So those are the proposed actions for each board member with this information. Are there any questions about that?
I got one question. You're using 22, back over you said 24's general election is over 50% bigger than 2022 general election in every way. Do you have any numbers for 2020? Because that was the vice presidential.
Yeah, we had 71% turnout. I don't with me have, I don't have the numbers for that. But those numbers were taken into consideration in calculating your polling location turnouts, the 2020 and 2022 elections. It's in there.
Okay.
Okay. That's it?
That concludes my
Okay,
report.
thank you. Mr. Ford, facilities.
I don't have a formal facility report, but I'm happy to say that, based largely to Marie's efforts, the warehouse and all the work associated with it has been finally completed. We're happy about that because now we have adequate storage space for all of the equipment that we need for the June and the November election. It was I have to commend Marie for her diligence and keeping in touch with the county to get that work done. They made several trips there because of some potential problems that occurred, but those problems have been resolved now, and I'm happy to say that we got the appropriate storage space that we've been asking for quite some time. We finally got it, so kudos to Marie and staff for getting that done.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Mr. Backer.
The Finance Committee met on May 7th. Primary agenda topics were reviewing March year-to-date financial performance, bid on the forecast for the remainder of the year, fiscal year 25 budget status regarding any feedback from county admin on what has been proposed, and a brief discussion on election equipment, new election equipment. Through March, we are at, 75% of the budget year has been completed, and we have spent about 86% of the budget. But there are some variances there, and the key ones were election salaries. That's a line item in the financial report. Those are basically poll worker compensation, and that has not yet been reimbursed by the state. So as we go through the remainder of the fiscal year, we expect to be okay on that budget, on that line item when we get reimbursed by the state. There may be certainly some lag as we end the fiscal year. We've got a June election that will also require reimbursement from the state. That won't happen during the current fiscal year. We will have just some additional expenses for this year in terms of some supplies and postage. We've got mailings going out, new voter registration cards for locations that have changed, identifying the new precincts. Those are going to have to go out. But we expect at the end of the year, we should be pretty much on target with the overall budget. In terms of the FY25 budget status, Ms. Smalls has not received any direct feedback from county admin on what was proposed back on May 11th to them. And the first full reading of the budget ordinance by county council was scheduled for May 13th. That has been changed to May 28th in terms of the first budget reading. So a few days away from maybe getting some feedback on what the temperament is on the overall county budget as proposed. Election equipment, SEC in their budget proposal had a large line item for purchasing new equipment. It was almost $25 million. And majority of that was to purchase new DS300 scanners for all 46 counties. That has not been approved by the legislature. And approval of that is uncertain at this time. And included in that request was our need for, 800,000 plus for new equipment to properly equip all of our new precincts. Ms. Smalls has sent an email to the interim county administrator informing him of the potential of limited or no funding from the SEC for the purchase of this equipment, and that Beaufort County may need to be the stopgap for the purchase of that equipment. And in terms of meeting schedule, we discussed meeting quarterly at a minimum, but certainly meeting quarterly and meeting on the second week after the close of a quarter so that financial information is available for the quarter.
Okay. All right, legislative affairs.
Madam Chair,
Oh,
I
you
have
have
a
a question?
question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Now, it's my understanding the state budget has already been finalized and signed by the governor. Is that not the case?
I can address, I was going to address that during the Legislative Affairs Committee, so
Okay.
I'll just move on to that. So just following on Mr. Backer's comment, the SEC request was for about $25 million, and that included a statewide purchase of the new generation of scanners. It also included equipment for all the new precincts in the state. There are 48 new precincts. 31 of those are in Beaufort County. Spartanburg, I think, has 14, and York County has 2. So the Senate approved $12 million out of that 25, and the House approved $1. So that means that in the month of June, there will be a conference committee, so some representatives from the Senate and the House together in a room negotiating all of the budget line items. So they will settle on some agreement between $1 and $12 million for that SEC equipment line item. At that time, towards the middle, probably end of June, because they won't really start until after the June 11th election, our county delegation will help to encourage the SEC to make sure that equipment for the new precincts statewide are provided, in addition to any counties that the SEC chooses for the new scanners, the upgraded scanners. And I think it's prudent to, to also make sure we as a board encourage the SEC to make sure that our new precincts get the equipment that's needed, but also that we continue to speak with the county to make sure they're ready to backfill a shortfall from the SEC's budget request. So that line item won't be approved till the end of June, after conference committee.
That's interesting because for another hat that I wear, I was given confirmation from Senator Davis that the money that was requested on our behalf is approved and has been signed by the governor. That's what I was told.
It's our understanding that the budget has not been approved yet. When I last spoke with the executive director for the State Election Commission, it was not approved. So it's still a possibility, like Mr. Sweeney said in his report, but until they have the opportunity to go to committee and, iron out the differences between the Senate version and what the House approved, we still don't know. So
if we work on the premise that we don't get the amount of money that we're requested, and even if we get it, what type of a lag time is needed to order the equipment and receive it in time for the election? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? Is it 3 months? What type of timeline do we have?
there shouldn't be a whole lot of lag time. We've spoken to ES&S representatives, and they have equipment on hand. The dilemma is, and this is what I do not know for sure, is what type of equipment do we want? Do we want the proposed 300s, or do we want the DS 200s? And I know with the State Election Commission, they like everyone to be on the same page, using the same type of equipment. But if part of the state is getting the new equipment and the other half is getting the old, we won't be on the same page. So we're still working out those details, whether or not the firmware that we use will work with both set of equipment, and we would be ahead of the game when it comes down to new equipment. We're working on that part of it.
So is there a drop dead date that a determination needs to be made by whomever as to what equipment we're gonna get?
Well,
In order to
anything
be-
that we get have to be approved by the State Election Commission.
I understand that, but we have a June election and we have a November election. We're trying to get everything done for the November election. And these items have to be procured and shipped and certified for us to use them. So that we have to work backwards in terms of the amount of time that's needed to get that done. What I'm asking is that drop dead date for that to occur, and if it is, what's that date, estimated date is, because we may be in a situation where we have to operate without those equipment, and we have to have a plan in hand.
I think that's our number one plan, is to prepare to be without those equipment. Because depend on when a decision is made, the desire of the State Election Commission is to transition from the DS 200s to the DS 300s across the state. And with the $12.45 million that was approved, that's not going to happen. That is not going to be enough money. So if the State Election Commission decides, because I do not have enough money for all of the counties to transition over to the new DS 300s, then Beaufort County, we may get new equipment, but it will be the 200s. So the drop dead date would be like it would be for any other election. When do we have to test? We have to
Program.
we have to have the equipment on hand. They have to be set and programmed, just like our current equipment. And the deadline typically is, we just had a deadline. This is 16. About what? A month and 2 months before the election, something like that. Because all of our equipment right now is in the testing phase, and that we don't have the election till next month. So, but there's so much more that goes along with all of that. The firmware will have to be updated if we get the 300 versus the 200. So I would venture to say for the November election, if additional equipment is added, it's going to be the 200s, which to me is a waste.
So I have a concern about the if it's added, and I really think the uncertainty is the budget that the SEC gets approved, and when they get a budget approved, will our new equipment for 31 precincts be included? And I'm uncomfortable waiting until the end of June or mid-July to get that answer. I would really like to pursue asking the county to provide a budget to purchase that equipment now to make sure we get it on time. And if the SEC gets the funds approved, perhaps they can reimburse the county for that.
That's a lot of assumption.
And they won't do that. They won't do that.
The equipment for the.
The 200 or 300?
I don't think that's the critical thing right now. The critical thing is making sure we get the ballot marking devices. We need 128 ballot marking devices, 64 EPBs, and 31 scanners.
I understand that, but if the SEC is only gonna support the new equipment, it seems like we're wasting time purchasing the old equipment.
That's the truth. Because you can't take the old equipment and upgrade it to the 300.
Yes, understood.
The county budget for 2024, we can't buy equipment now.
Right.
Just like the state election commission budget will be approved by the end of June,
Right.
so will the county. So we will not,
Right.
of course, we got a response from the budget finance director saying that it's a possibility that the county will cover that,
Yes.
that equipment, but that, we will not know that until the end of June as well. So we can't buy equipment now because we don't have the funds, being the old or the new. So, again, we spoke with the SNS, and they said that the equipment is available when we need it.
It's a quick turnaround, technically. She basically said that's not a worry.
Define quick turnaround, is that a week? You call them and say, we need, how many, electronic poll books, whatever, and they can have it here in a week? Or are we talking 2 weeks, are we talking a month? Can you define quick turnaround?
We are, like Mr. Sweeney said, we have the largest need as far as the equipment for a new precinct. What the state law says we should have for a new precinct, and we are foremost in their mind as far as the SNS is concerned. After speaking with the representative, and we voiced those same concerns to her about turnaround and time and whatever, and she assured us that once everything is in place, the equipment will. She said you will get your equipment more than enough time to be ready. She could not give us a date because she doesn't know a date, but it's based on what happens with all of this.
But we're also looking at all the things that Marie talked about, that once the equipment arrives on site, that has to be done in order to prepare it to be
Right.
used in that election. And I think it would be very useful to sort of have a timeline, so we'd know, as if we don't get this equipment by approximately this date, that we need to have a plan B or a plan C on how we're going to make this election work smoothly for our voters if we don't get the equipment. And I'd feel more comfortable if I had a date that said, if money's not there by this date, we're going to have to figure out a new plan.
I don't think that you need to be all that concerned, because we have equipment on hand.
Yes.
We may have to be creative with the use and distribution of it, but I don't think that not having all of the new equipment by the November election is going to break the election. Okay,
And
the
I agree,
estimation.
but you need a plan to make sure that doesn't happen. And I heard you say be creative. That's great. I think we need to be creative. But again, when do we have to start worrying about this?
Please,
When is it? Give me, if you could give us a date, I'd feel more comfortable.
I'm not, I don't want you to worry. If I don't worry, you don't need to worry. The reason for that is because anything that goes on with election equipment in Beaufort County will still need to be authorized and approved by the State Election Commission. So when if the county decide to purchase this equipment, it has to come through the state as well. So it's not that we are standalone and we can say, hey, it's not like going to Walmart and picking up a a piece of electronic equipment. All of this stuff need to be funneled through the state so that it can be legitimate, make sure that all the serial numbers and whatever else is recorded on the state level. Even though they may belong to the county, the state has a lot to say and do about it. And so, again, I don't want to stay here and beat a dead horse about something we have very little control over, but please know that the November election is not in jeopardy because we don't have exactly what's estimated to be. And again, I think the estimation that Mr. Sweeney is projecting is a little bit high because it's based on certain things having to happen, projections based on turnout, based on whatever. But we know good and well that we're not going to need as many pieces of equipment that is projected because, first of all, we can't fit as many pieces of equipment in some of our polling locations, due to the limitation in sizes. So that's something that we will work out way in advance, and we will know way in advance, and my board should not have to worry about whether or not we can service the voter of Beaufort County, because we will.
And can I just to be clear, and just to follow up on what Marie said, we have 105 scanners now. We're projecting we're going to need 85 for the November election. We have 213 EPVs, slightly more than what we're projecting we're going to need. And we have 565 ballot marking devices. So we're very close to the projection. And so I think the plan is going to have to be, if we have to reallocate equipment, what equipment gets reallocated and where. And just to reiterate what you said, I think we have equipment.
I'd like to add that we do have two things in our control related to this. Number one is making sure that the SEC keeps in mind that we would like to have all the equipment we need for the 31 new precincts, continually reminding them. The second thing that's in our control is speaking to the county and getting them ready to backfill the shortfall in budget from the SEC at the end of June or July 10th or whenever it is, so that it's not a surprise when we go to them and say, oh, we didn't get the funds, we would like this equipment. That's within our control.
And we have implemented that. I think, Mr. Backer, I thought I sent it out to all the board, but we received a response from the finance, maybe budget director, saying that they will work with us on making sure that we have what we need.
Okay, so do we know what we need to provide to them on June 30th if we don't get the SEC funding? Do we know what backup information and justifications are?
We've already provided them with that
They
information.
have everything they need. Okay.
Again, I do not run the finance department or the budget department.
Well, we have
All
in
I
our
can do is say what they said to us.
Okay. Well, we have
So-
in our control to find out exactly what the county will need from us on June 30th, or whatever the date is when we find out whether the SEC has their budget and whether they will provide the equipment.
again, that comes through the budget process, and when the budget is approved, they will let us know, and we will work with whatever it is. But they are aware of it. I promise you they are.
Thank you. Okay,
Just one other question now. If we do have to purchase equipment, will it be the new equipment or the old equipment, the existing equipment? Do we know?
Is that up to us? or
Again,
would
that's
that be
approval,
Howie?
we would need approval from the State Election Commission to buy the new equipment. But right now, we are only set up to operate under the DS-200 firmware.
Existing, okay.
okay.
Marie, just to summarize, to make sure that I was clear on 2 points you made. First, we may not find out, or probably won't find out till the end of June, what we were approved for. If at that point we find out we were approved for what we're asking, you are comfortable with the time frame between June 30th and the November election for that equipment being ready to go.
I am.
The other comment that I thought I heard you say was that you are anticipating we will not get the amount of the equipment that we've requested, and you are proceeding based on that assumption.
For an alternative plan?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
okay,
We only have what we have,
right,
so yes.
okay.
And we would have to use what we have.
Okay. All right, great discussion. Okay, re-presenting Beverly Dorr.
There is no report, nor will there be a monthly report. I'd like to refer you back to our operations manual. The re-precincting committee will work with the new census findings and realignment of areas according to changes in populations. So this really happens right after the census is done. So unless I get some directives as to other types of things that the committee needs to work on, then there is no report.
Anybody have any questions? Okay. So moving right on along, Rules Committee, Elizabeth Johnson.
I made the changes in the operations manual that were voted on at the last meeting, and I'd like to thank Chris for all her help and support. One of the things that, the copy that I was working from did not have a table of contents, and Marie noted that we probably should have one. And I'd like to thank Chris for getting that table of contents prepared in, about 24 hours? So thank you very much, and I think she's passed out the new operations manual to
Everybody got one?
everyone. I don't know, because I haven't had time to talk about it. Now, I have one of these books that you gave me that we can hole punch and put it in here. Will all the members of the board have those?
They should, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Remember one of your guys.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate all the support you've given us on this project.
All right.
Thank you.
That's the end of my report.
Report. Okay. I wonder if we need to vote on accepting this. I think we do. Yeah. Can we get a motion to accept this? Because it's already been completed, right? This is it.
It's been approved,
Oh, we
there
did
were
approve
several
it?
there were two
Okay.
changes that the board voted on to make to the draft I gave you last time.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them was to change the name of the re-precincting committee, and the other one was to remove
Okay.
the page that had all of the contact information for the board
Okay.
members. And so we did that, and then, as I said, added a table of contents. Do we need a motion to approve the table of contents?
As amended.
Yeah.
Okay,
Amended.
so I move that we approve the table of contents, which is added to the manual
I
this last
second.
meeting.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that we amend
Great job.
the operations manual to add the table of contents. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you, Liz. Thank you. Now we have a operations manual that everyone can have in their possession. Wow. New business. Town of Port Royal requests to transfer authority of elections to county board. Marie?
You should have a copy or a letter in your package with that request from the town of Port Royal. So what we need the board to do is to motion to move forward with that process. Chris, did we add it? Okay.
I don't see it. You got that? Oh, yeah, I have it. I see it. Yeah, we have it.
Okay, so that's the beginning of the request. The town of Port Royal couldn't be present today, but that's the letter that was submitted by the town manager. And so we just need the board, if you approve, to accept the authority, and then we'll go through the legal process, because it does need to go to county council to create an ordinance for it. Well, actually, it needs to go to the town council for an ordinance to be created to come to our county council to accept it.
Okay.
So we just need to get the process started.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So if we agree to do this, would that mean that Port Royal's arrangement for municipal elections is the same as Hilton Head's and the city of Beaufort's?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Ford, you have a question?
Yes, now, if we accept, this transfer of authority, what comes with that, other than more work for your staff?
No, it's really no more work for us, because we're already doing it. The only thing, it will be more work for you, because you will now have to certify the election. They will dissolve the election commission, which approve or certify the election results, and that will be transferred to you as a board.
Okay.
There's no financial benefit at all?
Well, they still they pay us now to do the elections, and they will continue to do that.
Thank you.
Beverly?
I move that we accept the request to transfer authority for municipal elections from the Beaufort Municipal Elections Commission of Port Royal to the Voter Registration and Elections Board of Beaufort County.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded by Matt Sweeney that we accept this transfer request from Port Royal to our county board. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Director's report. Really? That'll be a first.
It's really short, really, it is. Because I know we were going to have an extensive committee involvement today. Mr. Sweeney kind of gave me heads up on the things that he had in his report. I know everybody else was providing an update. So if we look at what we are doing today, like always, we cover these 4 major categories. And the only thing legislatively that's happening or happened, or piece of legislation that passed in this legislative session, was the Senate Bill 1126. And it was to include in the Constitution that it's relating to voter qualification, so as to provide that only a citizen of the United States and of the state of the age of 18 and upward who is properly registered is entitled to vote as provided by law. And that's really the only piece of legislation that was passed so far as election-related laws are concerned. So in other words, only people who are registered, eligible and registered citizens of this country and of the state should be allowed to vote.
Marie, how is this proposal different from how it's currently written?
Nothing really. I don't think it was written in the Constitution. So this is being added to the state constitution.
State constitution.
Okay, election updates. New poll workers. Since March, we have added 148 new poll workers to our database, which I think is great. The unfortunate part is not that many of them are in the town of Bluffton or in the Bluffton area. But we are working on that. We have new poll workers training scheduled in July and August, where there will be a lot of Bluffton residents taking training to become new poll workers. So that should help alleviate some of the concerns in November for the Bluffton area. Yes, ma'am.
I see you have this list. Are these all located in Bluffton, or are some of them up here at this side of the county?
You mean for the new poll workers?
Yeah, the ones you have, like the July 6th and August 3rd.
Yeah, we have other people involved, but the majority of them are Bluffton folks.
But is the training gonna be held in Bluffton or here?
The training will still be in Beaufort.
Okay,
And the reason why we do the training in Beaufort, because of the equipment that we are using to train them on. It's a lot of stuff to be hauling back and forth. So we encourage the poll workers to come to the office where everything is, so they can see how things are done. And so if you notice, we added 2 new sessions in the summer. So those classes are still open. If you know folks, we can still recruit and get people trained before the November election.
Maria, I understand that a training program has been added that is literally the evening before the day of the June primaries?
But we have, you didn't have a training schedule, did you?
No, we didn't. Technically today is the last day, tonight at 6. Gene is doing one now. And technically today is the last day. Gene is training right now, and I'm going to do it at 6. We do have a few people who are out of the country who we have to have. Jean is going to train some of them at early voting where she works, and I'm meeting 2 people tomorrow. But as far as that day before, we have not anticipated having to do that right now. We don't see us having to do that right now.
Okay, yes, sir.
Of the 148 new poll workers, how many attended the mandatory briefings last week?
All of them aren't necessarily working on June. Some of them are. What did help was those. I got some that said, "Hey, I can guarantee you Bluffton if you want. If in June, if you come to Bluffton, I'll guarantee you get in." We had like maybe 15 that did that, but quite a few of them. I said, if I were to venture a guess, of the 148, I would say about 50 of them are going to be working in June.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney?
Where do we stand on a system to provide automatic response to new poll workers who sign up on the website?
We have the system, we just haven't implemented yet. And the reason for that is because we've been busy. I'm sorry, that's not really an excuse, but we are responding to our poll workers. When they visit our poll workers website, they get a response. It's just not automatic.
It's a manual response.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the other thing too, we have what has happened. We've noticed, I think, about 7 or 8 people. They expect that when they sign up now, that they're going to be in a class now, and that's not net. The classes have been out there and people have been signed up. And we had one gentleman, he was highly upset that he couldn't get into the class the next day. And we told him these classes have been filled out, they've been out there. That's the only issue that we've seen when it comes down to that kind of thing. We actually have those people who do sign up, Gene continuously scans, and both of us actually continuously scan we call it poll worker management email address. And we go through those three times a week. Well, Jean probably does it every day. And anybody that's a new submission, she automatically has their response because their paperwork and everything is done.
It's not automatic, though. It's a manual response.
Well, no, there was automatic. This is all right. When they go on it, the first thing they do, they're taught, go to this place, sign up, and fill out your paperwork. And they get their paperwork and everything and all that. So when we respond to them, it's like, okay, these are the classes that are available. Go ahead and see if you can sign up. When the openness is there and the classes are available, that's when we do that response back. But it has to be that at this point because we have to make sure that their classes are still available or classes are still open. But as far as, I would think here in Beaufort County, compared to maybe other places, we probably get back to our people quicker than most people do.
Okay, well, after the June 11th primary, I believe particularly in Bluffton, we'll be doing some targeted recruiting. And I'd like to ask if you could have that automatic response system up and running shortly after the June 11th election. And I'm not as concerned about the new poll workers who are engaged, but they can't get into a class. It's the ones that are not engaged that concerns me. And it's anecdotal, but I've spoken with 4 or 5 people on Hilton Head Island who signed up on the website and never heard anything back. And that's a concern that can be addressed by the automatic response system. So my request is to get that up and running soon after the June 11th election.
Well, I would venture to say it would probably be the 1st of July because there is a potential for a runoff. If there's not a runoff, then we will probably be able to do that. But there are so many things to go on between after the June election to finish up the June election. It's not over with the day of the election,
Okay, thank you.
okay? So as soon as possible, how about that?
A couple of the classes in July and August are already full. Is that because you do have a number of interested parties from Bluffton who did not get into the earlier sessions?
I don't know the area they are from. They probably are from across the whole counties.
Oh, okay.
But the PM class that's been added for the 6th and the 3rd, we are targeting the Bluffton what do you call them?
Applicants. Yeah, new recruits.
Potential poll
Potentials,
workers.
yeah.
But I'm glad to have these dates because I'd be interested. A couple of communities, or at least one community so far, had done a large email blast. Hampton Lake did an email blast to 2,000 email addresses. I don't know what kind of response you may have gotten yet, but they are willing to resend it. St. Gregory the Great Church is willing to send out something. I haven't seen them send anything yet, but obviously they have a large congregation, or parish, actually the largest in South Carolina. And Belfair has also said they're willing to consider sending out an email blast, so we can maybe get some email blasts going out after the June primary to those targeted areas, and particularly Bluffton.
Thank you. Yeah, we as soon as they come in, if we see Bluffton, we will give them preference because we know that's where it's at. We will probably establish additional training dates. I can't promise you how many. It depends on the need. And I think I told the board before that if we get the folks in, if we have a sufficient amount of people on a waiting list, we will open up another class. But remember now, for us, the November election process will be in full swing after August the 15th, which means we will be focusing a lot on preparing for the November election. And so when we start doing classes and 4 or 5 hours a day chunks out of the work schedule, it will be we will be limited on that. So what we are hoping to do is corral as many people as we can between now and August the 3rd, so that we can get them trained and ready to go for the November election.
Thank you.
Good questions. Anybody else?
On the topic of poll workers, when can we expect to get the preliminary poll worker assignment lists?
Yeah,
This-
you should get those we're waiting till after the night, because if those people don't show up, then we know to cut them, and then you get the list after, we get the list out tomorrow. Because the lists are ready to go, we just have to see who's gonna show up tonight. And
For
we've
the
called
peop-
everybody who has not been, who has not signed up for training, who was on the list, and letting them know that tonight and tomorrow, today's classes are the last classes.
So for those people who don't show up tonight, even though they RSVP'd, will they be given an opportunity to attend one of the small group briefings that you and Jean are doing?
I'm not really, tomorrow I have two clerks, and these are people that I begged to become clerks for me. And their schedule will only allow what we're doing tomorrow. And with Jean, there's people, I have a clerk, she's seeing like 4 people over the early voting period. And she's having them come out to early voting site at USCB, and she's training them there. So right now, I know that she's training one of my clerks and another poll worker, and I think she has 2 more. So I can ask her what she's willing to do out there, how many, but we don't want to have a class in the middle of early voting either. You know, just like a one-on-one kind of, one to two thing kind of thing.
So back to my original question, does that mean the preliminary assignment list will come out this week sometime?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, definitely.
we were waiting
Definitely.
for
I've
the
already-
last class so that we will verify who is available, because if you're not trained, of course you can't work. And so tonight was the absolute last day for poll workers training. The special training that Wendell and Jean are doing is for clerks.
Clerks and people who
Who
cannot.
couldn't make the other
Right,
briefings.
we're making that adjustment for them.
So also, and speaking about that and speaking about clerks, yesterday we received a word from the State Election Commission that they will be offering an additional $100 for those clerks who are attending clerk training. So that is sweetening the pot a little bit more than it was in the past.
Is that a stipend for attending training, or a stipend that if you attend training and work as a clerk, you get it at the election?
You will have to attend the clerk training and work as a clerk.
Okay, just trying to clarify it in my mind.
And clerk training is being conducted immediately after the regular poll workers training. So if they don't go today or tonight after Wendell's session, if they want to be a clerk, Wendell and Jean will set up a time where they can be trained as a clerk. We have almost all, I think we only down 2 clerks in the whole county. No, 1, 2. Well, Jean is down 2,
I'm down 2, but
so it's 4.
I'll probably be down 1 by tomorrow if I'm gonna talk to another individual. And I'll be down 1 by tomorrow, and that's in Sun City, so it really,
So, yeah.
11, 12 people in the place. Just it's a figurehead person almost.
My preference is that every precinct have a
Has a
clerk,
clerk, yeah.
even if it's a combined precinct. But there are some people who are still not willing to step up to be clerks. And so, again, I'm telling you this because we want to encourage those people who have a chance to earn an extra $100 to go ahead and step up. It's the time to do so right now. So once you get your list, maybe sometime tomorrow, look at your list. You know the folks. We've been working with them for the last couple of weeks, trying to engage them, trying to encourage them, and some of them just not going to do it. So if you have better influence over some of the folks that you see, and it is one of your precinct that doesn't have a clerk, encourage them to become a clerk. They will be compensated fairly.
Marie? Is that a one-time for the June
That's just for this election.
Just for this election.
Typically, we normally receive an extra $100 for clerks. It's just that we just got word from SEC today that they will be doing that. He must have been looking at his budget.
Marie, when I attended my briefing, Jean asked all the clerks to stay late, to
Right.
stay afterwards, and for about half an hour, 45 minutes, that clerk things, is that the training you're talking about?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, just wanted
Yes.
to clarify, it wasn't like a separate date.
See, in the past, this stipend that they did, we actually had a full-on 1 hour clerk class a different time, or maybe, sometimes we did put it afterwards, but it was specifically just for clerks. And it was a first come, first serve based on how many we had. But they haven't done this is the first time in about a year, 2 years, right?
Yeah, we haven't done it since
Yeah,
2022.
they haven't,
Right, I
yeah, they
know.
haven't given us this extra $100 in a while. So this is for, and then they did it so late for us, so it was kind of,
Okay, I was just curious if there was gonna be like a separate clerk training to get that stipend, or that
No.
extra session that went after the briefing was the training you're talking about.
Our clerks have already had their clerk training.
Right.
They just wasn't gonna be paid for it, but now they will.
Okay, thank you.
We've conducted 8 forums, community forums, and a couple of other meetings. And even though we had a good time doing it, our turnout was not all that great. But I think it was worth it, because at every one of those sessions that we had, there was someone in that session. Is that me? Who's that beeping? Oh. There was someone in that session that said that they learned something. So to me, it was a success. If you can see the light goes on in someone's head when you are talking about the processes and what goes on with the election, and they go, "Oh, I didn't know that." I love to hear that. That means somebody learned something. And so in the fall, those forums will be limited, again, because we will be preparing for the November election. So we will take those on an as-come basis based on when a request comes in.
Marie, when you're doing one of these community forums and you hear the comment, "Oh, I didn't know that, I learned something," does that imply that they turn around and sign up as a new poll worker thereafter, or a new poll clerk, or how do we measure the effectiveness of these community forums?
Well, most of them came for the information, because it's an informational forum. Some of them do. We had one session, I think, in the Port Royal area. Someone from Bluffton came to the Port Royal session. Anyway, he was considering becoming a poll worker. We had one that almost every session, we either got someone to say, "I'm interested in becoming a poll worker, but not for this election." And one session, we got more than 35, 40 people out of, new poll workers, even though they weren't at the session, but someone from the session recruited people because they were excited about the information that they received. So that's why I'm saying it was not a loss, because good things happened from it. And the guy that said he was considering being one, he said he would go back and talk to the people in his community about it. So again, I would like to have seen them there in person, but the word still got out, so. Mr. Ford reported that the facility is completed, and we are grateful and thankful, and we are utilizing it. So thank you. I would like to thank the county facilities department and all that they did to make sure that that project got up and running and completed. So Audra, would you please relay to Eric how grateful the board is for making sure that that project was completed. Thank you. So far as SCARE is concerned, We have a new SCARE president. Our former president, Cynthia Holland, has resigned. She is leaving Aiken County as a director. And so Isaac Kramer, who is the director for Charleston County voter registration and election, will step up as president. Also, there will be a mid-year conference in North Charleston, July the 18th and 19th. And you will be getting more information on that about the mid-year conference. Some of the issues that Mr. Sweeney talked about, and I didn't go into details with a lot of the hot wash issues because I know during this workshop itself, we discussed and talked about a lot of it in details. A lot of it is just things that we need to do, poll workers need to do, board members need to do. So we will talk about some of the things that were recommended and will be implemented for this election. For example, item 1.8, which was about political signs and making sure that the poll workers understand where the radius was for that 500 feet. Even though we had in the past, poll workers would pretty much put the sign out and our technicians would come back and verify the 500 feet. Now they will have a map included in their election supplies that will indicate where that 500 feet radius is. Again, it's just a tool. The 500 feet is pretty big. It's not like right there. But we have to keep in mind that we cannot encroach upon private property. So if our 500 feet radius is on somebody else's property, we pretty much need to come to our property line. So that's just something that's included. The street map listing is, I think that was a concern, but the street map is in the supplies. If there's a question about whether or not a voter is eligible to vote in a particular precinct, if they cannot find it on the street listing, their address on the street listing, or if they can't identify themselves on the street, on the wall map. I'm saying a wall map because it's big enough to be on the wall, but we need to be mindful of putting wall maps in some of these newer facilities, especially because it may be forbidding. A lot of folks don't want thumbtacks or push pins on the walls in some of these facilities. So it may need to be laying out on a table somewhere, at the resolution table, so clerks can identify where that precinct line is for a voter. The easiest way to really do that is to check the street listing. If the address is included in that precinct, the voter is eligible to vote in that precinct. Again, when in doubt, contact the office and we will verify that information. We do have a lot of new facilities that we are not familiar with. So a parking plan, I think needs to be discussed. I know some of our board members have already talked to the facility directors or managers about reserving space at these clubs for voters. And so we need to follow up on that, board members, along with the clerks. The day or two before election, please make sure that our facilities, especially the new one, cordoned off some kind of, or put some kind of markers out there for voter parking only. That needs to be coordinated between us and the facility, because we can't go there and take over their parking because that's a business. I know there were some requests for additional supplies, and due to budget restraints, we are not going to be able to order any additional supplies for the June election, but we should be able to add additional supplies for the November election. We have enough supplies now to accommodate most of our all of our precincts, is just any special requests for additional extension cords or signs, we will take care of that in the next year's budget.
And and also to put the workers at ease, we spoke to all of the clerks, especially those that are in co-located locations. And a lot of times, they were only using, the lead clerk was only using their stuff. Whereas you have 4 clerks or 3 clerks there, all of them who got bag full of stuff and they weren't using it. So we explained to them, everybody uses everybody's stuff. You just put it back at the end of the night. So a lot of times, when staff would say, hey, we need some more extension cords, I said, we just bought extension cords. And it was in that process where they weren't using everybody's stuff at the place. So now they know to start doing that. And we should have more than enough signs and extension cords and surge protectors for all of the precincts right now. But we will have more in, like Marie said, when we do get our new budget and things come in, we will buy standbys.
But that doesn't preclude you from letting us know if you need something. If you know that you need something, we need to know, because there may be a way we can still get it. But if it's something that you just like to have, if you could wait until, November, then you will have that. So, I think Mr. Backer did a great job on reporting where we are with the budget, so I don't need to rehash all of that. Are there any questions or any other concerns maybe that came up in the workshop that I did not address that you need answers to or comments on?
Starting to my right, Mr. Wedworth. Mr. Ford. Mr. Sweeney.
I just have, not related to the workshop, but I have a minor request, and that is for important documents like the notice of election, if you could add version control to these documents. So
Add what?
Version control.
Oh, version
So
control.
either a date
Oh.
or a version number or something. So I don't know if this is the same as what's on the website now, or if it's the same as the
Yeah,
one that was.
Chris should have given you the
before.
latest.
Okay, well, it'd be helpful if it had a date or a version on it in the future.
Yeah, we
Thank
got you. Thank you. Good suggestion.
Beverly?
I know that there are parameters that control, the co-location of precincts and their timelines. But is there any way that those of us who serve those precincts that are being co-located can find out whether there are problems, like a little bit ahead of time, so that maybe we can have some type of input? I don't know.
In reference, not sure if I understand what you're saying.
I'm just asking about the Cornerstone, core location, where 3 precincts are gonna be relocated in there, and there's only 1 entrance. And I just happened to find out accidentally about it, but I was just wondering if there's any way that
Well,
we can have this information so that maybe one who serves that area for a long period of time can maybe say what some of the constraints are regarding the physical.
I just want you all to rest assured that when we move a polling location, we fight like tooth and nail not to, because we know it will upset voters. It upsets us because we have to move it. And so when we have to make a decision on that, we just have to make a decision because we do have deadlines. And yes, you will be notified when those changes happen, but it may not be before it happens.
Right.
Because we worked up until the last hour of the day to get information from the facilities of availability and things like that. And when they don't respond, but I have a deadline to respond.
Right.
What a lot of folks don't realize about our election and our election database is that we don't build it overnight. It takes weeks and for it to go through the process and the testing process as well. And so once we make that decision that a polling place is going to be a certain place, if we change that, we have to start that process all over again, including testing. So we do not like to move polling places because
Yeah, I know that. I
it's
was
really
just wondering if
more
there was
work.
some way we could kind of have a greater level of communication regarding that, because, you know, I was just told, yeah, you can locate both of them right across the street, but I think that information came too late, the person didn't respond. But I'm just thinking if there was sort of some communication.
There was no space across the street because both.
Mossy Oaks.
Mossy Oaks is available now. Yesterday, we got notice from the, you can talk to Wendell about this, but we got notification yesterday that Mossy Oaks is available as of yesterday, and I can't change my database.
Right, I don't expect to, but I'm just saying, is there any way in the future that maybe the board members can know in a timely manner so that maybe something can be done?
You were copied on the email
I didn't get that.
that the facility was changing.
Yesterday, that was too late though.
No.
No.
Mr.
Mr.
That
Sweeney
was
sent it out.
Back in April.
Yeah,
April
when everybody
12th is
read
when
it
we
on
found
the
out.
Location.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't see that on that one in April. Okay, I'm just asking, because I just want to be of greater help when I can.
Yeah, and I think all of you would probably want to know that because it will affect your areas. But I just want you to also know that when we have to make these kinds of decisions, we can't always wait for a convenient time for a response because, like I say, we are under deadline as well.
Right, I know, and then you have to program accordingly.
Right.
I'm aware of that.
Okay, Don.
No questions.
Hey, Elizabeth,
No questions.
Jim Becker.
Just a quick update on the search for additional polling locations. Hampton Lake is still an active discussion. I met with their general manager on May 1st. Reconnected with him late last week, and he said he's gotten some positive feedback from the board. And they have a board meeting on May 29th where they're going to discuss that issue, and I, again, offered that, do they need any more information? Because I reviewed a presentation with him. He has that presentation. He has some of the background information. And I also offered to attend the meeting if he thought that would be helpful. So hopefully within the next week or two, we may have some resolution on, Hampton Lake. But at least at this point, it's somewhat positive.
Yes. Thank you. We appreciate that. And hopefully, when they approve it, it will be in effect in November.
Yes.
So that will alleviate one precinct being someplace that, it shouldn't be. And I think we should all be encouraged to continue to look for polling locations because we still have multiple locations out there, and that's not our goal. Our goal is for every precinct to have its own polling place. And I know that's not always possible, but right now that's still our goal.
Okay. Aline Mitchell. My comment is to a little humor. First, I would like to thank all of the board members for the work that you have done and the work that you will continue to do. To Marie and her staff, thank you for giving us great updates, moving the ball in the right direction so we can be ready for our May 28th early voting. Board members, make sure you go out early and vote. Just in case you can't vote at your precinct if you're in a different area. And also make sure that, we use these great sheets that Matt has put together for us, and you're gonna make sure we get them in due time for the June 11th election?
The poll worker comment sheets?
Mhm.
I hope so. As soon as we get the poll assignments, we'll be able to
Okay.
fill in those sheets.
Yeah,
We just
Okay.
need blanks to
I
carry
just
with
need the
us.
blanks.
Yeah.
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 Okay? And, other than that, I think that's all the comments I have, other than, oh, my eyes. And if I don't respond to your email very quickly, it's not because I'm ignoring it, it's just that, you know, this eye surgery has been drastic. And I guess because I'm on the computer too long, which I learned from these two doctors to my left. Thank you for your insight on what I need to do going forward.
Oh, me.
I think that's all I have, because for my comments, we are now down to next board meeting is scheduled for, to be determined. Anybody have any suggestion? You want to meet in July? Or you want to just meet right after the canvas hearing?
Let's meet after the canvas hearing.
All right.
That
The
sounds,
canvas hearing is
Sound good.
Thursday.
do we need a motion for that, Madam Chairman?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just need to choose a time because
Oh.
you need to notify
Oh,
the
the press.
the public
Yeah.
about the time you want to
What
meet.
time at?
What time is the
Canvas
canvas?
there?
10 to 12.
10 to 12, so shall we say 12:30?
Do we want to have
Okay.
lunch?
Madam Chair?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
have lunch.
So 1
Yeah, we'll
o'clock?
do lunch.
Canvas hearing.
Have 30 minutes for lunch.
Pardon me, Chris?
Make sure to clarify which canvas hearing.
One on
You
the
did one for the runoff, you're doing the one for the 13th.
Oh,
correct?
13th.
So June 13th at 1 o'clock?
Yeah,
June 13th.
June
Okay.
13th. Okay, June 13th at 1,
Okay, that's good.
okay? All right, now we're to adjournment. Can I get a motion?
Did we say 1 o'clock for that?
1
meeting?
o'clock.
The canvases are gonna be 9 or 10.
The canvas hearing? It's at 10.
10.
It's at 10.
Because one time it started at 9.
It's at 10. Okay.
Camera starting at what time?
Canvas starts at 10.
Yeah,
Board meeting at 1.
board meeting at 1.
Did Jim move to adjourn?
I did.
I'll second that.
All right. Move the
James, you're
second
too
that
slow
we
this time.
adjourn. Meeting adjourned.